something's wrong with me, something's broken. Like, I see everybody else completing these tasks and I'm not. Each of us are very unique individuals. You're different than me, so why should we expect that our brains are the same? All I heard was, hey, Todd's broken.
You recognized you thought differently.
You're not broken, and there's nothing wrong with you thinking differently. But we all try to teach kids the same. And
Sure.
then we get angry when some kids don't fit that mold.
Also in there is the word dignity. You're just in the boat with them.
Dyslexia, ADHD, these are strengths.
Todd, you and I met through a couple of different avenues. I think the first was through SIM, the Society of Information Managers. Yeah. But more recently, we have been both participating in an AI mastermind group that meets, once a month?
Yeah.
Once every month and a half or so. And I was hearing some of your great wisdom and followed you on LinkedIn.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And then I found the real dirt. Then I found that the book. And so then I finally reached out in the separate channel and was like, hey, we need to get together and talk.
I love it.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
So, man, I got a couple pages of notes of all sorts of stuff to talk about. So Jackie's going to probably have to hit the stop button on us eventually and tell us to just shut up. But
do you have one of those buttons?
So professionally, you are the CIO of National Food Group.
Yes.
Headquartered here in Detroit.
Novi.
In Novi.
Yep.
Okay. But you do a heck of a lot of other stuff. And so we got a great
I'm
great
involved
time.
in a lot of things.
I know. This is what ADHD will do to somebody.
Yes,
like get you involved in a lot of stuff. So I know the story. I got it myself. So this is a lot of fun, and we're going to share it with others.
We're going to get distracted a lot.
We're going to get distracted. Yeah. This will be great for all the ADHD kids to watch, but anybody who's linear thinking, they're not going to like this very much. So let's kind of go back in history, because there was something that happened when you were young that was kind of like an inflection point very early on, where you recognized you thought differently, and what happened?
Yeah. I kind of come back to that. Everybody has their like origin story, right? Something that happened when they were younger that really shaped who they are and how they interact, and not only with themselves, but the community and those around them. And for me, it was early on. It was first grade. When I was in first grade, I could not read or write for the life of me. When I would look at letters, they would get all scrambled up. And when I would look at the word dad, I wouldn't see DAD, I would see PAP, or sometimes I would see PAD, or sometimes I'd see DAP. Like, the letters were all over the place. And I would look around me and see all these other students finishing everything that was in front of them way before me. And, that created anxiety for me as a kid, and thinking, something's wrong with me. Something's broken. Like, I see everybody else completing these tasks and I'm not. And, so I started acting out just like any other kid would, started making, jokes about things, or, being places that I wasn't supposed to be. But the essence was I wasn't completing the work that needed to be done. And I had my first grade teacher, pull me to the side and say, okay, well, it's reached a level where we got to have some conversations with the principal and so forth. And I remember being at my house when my mom first got a call, and it was one of those old like Manila phones. It was big, and it had one of those cords that went like, 25 40 feet.
So the mom could have some privacy when she wanted to talk in the closet or in the bathroom. So
she goes around and she's having a conversation. She comes back with a serious look on her face, and she's like, hey, we've got to have a conversation tomorrow, with your principal. And I said, all right. So we sat down, at the table with the principal of my elementary school, and my mom and dad, and principal looked over at my parents and said, hey, Todd's really struggling. We need to hold him back. And my mother pushed back, and she said, well, why? And she said, well, he's not doing well, this, that, and the other. And And she pushed back again. She says, well, what good is it going to be if we hold him back another year and we don't understand the root cause of the issue? He's just going to have the same struggles next year as he has this year. And so they agreed that they would do some testing, right? So they did their testing and they came back with ADHD, dyslexia, this, that, and the other. All I heard was, hey, Todd's broken. And, the principal was like, okay, see, you've got all the evidence now. We're going to hold him back. And my mom pushed back even more. She said, no. She's like, I see a lot more. He's not this kid that can't do things. I see him play with his Legos and build these massive things. I see him sit down and solve puzzles that none of us adults can solve. Like there's something more there. So principal pushed back and said, look, I'm sorry this is your kid, but he's not going to graduate high school, nevertheless go to college.
They made this statement in first grade
when I was sitting right there with my mom and dad.
Wow.
Principal said he's not going to graduate from high school.
In front of a first grader.
Yes. And I was just like almost in tears.
Of course.
Because for me, I'm thinking I can see that everybody's doing stuff, but to have an adult sit there and tell me what my ceiling was at a kid at that age, I was like crushed.
Well, that wasn't just any adult. That was the principal of the school. I mean, that was like the supreme leader.
It was the one that makes the end decision.
Yeah.
And so my parents looked at each other and my mom pushed back and she said, no. She's like, I want one more test. I want an IQ test. And the principal came back and said, it's not going to matter. And my mom said, I don't care. I want it done. And so they went back and gave me an IQ test and I scored off the charts. And the principal was shocked and was like, I can't believe that we're looking at these numbers.
Sure.
And my mom said, okay, finally, you can see he's got the capacity to learn. He's just got some blockers that we have to get past. And the principal said, well, we do have a special education program that we can put Todd in and we can see if that helps. And we won't hold him back for the first year and we'll see how things go. So it's like, all right, so half of the day I was in special education, the other half I was in normal classes.
Okay.
And
so was that the same then as it is now with the IEPs and the special accommodations, or was it a little more rudimentary back then?
I think it depends on the severity of whatever challenge, that you're working through. Back then they just lumped everybody together.
Okay.
So I really don't view myself as being extreme to other people that were in my class. There were people in my class that couldn't read and never would read just based on, some of the disabilities that they were working through. That was very positive for me though, because it gave me empathy of those around me. We were all classes of misfits.
Sure.
Right. We were in the misfit group. But I was extremely lucky to be put into that situation because I had a teacher named Miss McClive, Mary McClive, who had the same issues that we do. She had ADHD, she had dyslexia, and she graduated from college. And I remember walking in, and of course, I'm all distraught and angry, and like nobody else can fix me. What am I even doing here? What can you do? And so I come in, and my arms are all crossed, right? And I'm like, what are you gonna do for me? And she just looked straight at me, and she's like, I see you. I was like, well, of course you see me. I'm right here. And she goes, no. She's like, I am you. And that was the first time that anybody looked at me and even felt some type of relationship of, hey, we're in this together,
sure,
kind of thing.
And you had the advocacy from your mom.
Yes.
Right. So obviously she was a fierce advocate who was not taking no for an answer and was going to get to the root cause. So you had her, but that's different than kind of somebody from the outside, especially when the principal looked down upon you so heavily, right?
Absolutely.
So to have somebody of authority like a teacher, like Miss McClive, You needed that.
And she was this individual that was a no nonsense individual. If you were trying your hardest, she would be your biggest advocate. And if somebody tried to pick on you, she would protect you to the ends of the earth. But if you messed up, like, you knew it, and you were straightening up fast. So she had this balance to her where she would look you in the eyes and she'd just eyeball you and you'd instantly stop. Okay, I got to straighten up.
So take me back. What age was this about?
So this was still first grade.
Okay. So not a whole lot of time elapsed between the.
Nope. It was about halfway through the year of first grade that we switched from, hey, you're going to be held back, to, okay, we're going to try this out for the rest of the year and see how it works out. And, she sat me down and helped me to really reframe where I was at and how I thought. She looked at me and she said, Todd, she's like, you're not broken. You just think differently. And there's nothing wrong with you thinking differently. But what we have to do here is we have to figure out how you learn, and then we'll craft something that'll work for you. And I was like, well, what do you mean how I learn? And she goes, well, she's like, typically individuals, they'll learn either with their eyes, or they'll learn through audio, or they'll learn through doing, or whatever it is. She goes, we need to find out what works for you. And so she did this great exercise with me. And she put the word orange up on the blackboard. And she says, well, what does this word spell? And I looked up there. I'm like, I have no idea. And she reaches into her desk drawer and she pulls out an orange and she throws it at me. She goes, this is an orange. Grabbed it and I was like, okay, great. And she was like, the word on the board is orange. And she goes, now what I want you to do, she's like, I want you to rub it. I want you to feel, the edges, the bumps. I want you to squish it a little bit. I want you to feel the juice inside. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I want you to feel what an orange feels like. Now look up at the board. And she goes, now what I want you to do is I want you to peel the orange and I want you to smell it. I want you to smell that citrus. I want you to get a good understanding of what an orange truly smells like. Now look up at the board. She's like, now what I want you to do is smash it. Put it in your hands, feel the stickiness of it, and how it's just, now look up at the board. And that's what an orange feels like. She's like, now I want you to go ahead and I want you to taste it. Feel how it tastes in your mouth, feel the juiciness and so forth, and look up at the board. And she's like, now close your eyes and spell it for me. And I spelled it perfect. And I never forgot it ever since.
Wow.
And I was baffled because I had so many difficulties with understanding and just getting any words, nevertheless a word that big for me at that age. And she was like, you're using all 5 of your senses. And I never forgot it. And I never will. But that was the essence then of sitting down with different methods that were out there and just starting to explore what worked, what didn't work. My ABCs. A lot of ABCs is memorization. I had these cards that had, say, the letter A on it. It had sandpaper over the top of it.
Okay.
So she would hand me a letter, let me close my eyes, and just rub across the A and feel what an A feels like. And to trace the outline, and then boom, never forget an A.
Wow.
And then we would do that with each of the letters, and she would trace those. And I'm using all these other senses, right? In the typical scenario where you're in first grade, you're in memorization mode. Everything is repetition, memorization. Well, that didn't work for me. I'm not built like that. But when I can use these senses, I could. And then it started to expand further. And I said, well, I can't just, taste, say, a pen. I can't just put a pen in your mouth. Or, a cup or whatever it is. And so then she started teaching me visualization. And she said, no, I'm not going to teach you how to, know what a pen tastes like, but pretend you're eating your favorite meal and you have your pen next to you. Now you're putting a story together, making a story live It's in your head. The visualization is in your head. You don't physically taste it, but in your mind, you're tasting it.
Are you one of those people that can come into a room and kind of make a story up about the room and then remember all the details about it? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that, but I'm more of the reverse. I take things that I need to remember, and then I create a story out of that.
Okay.
And the story could be something that's close to me or personal to me, and then I just remember. So I remember my learning is more around stories and stories that I create and visualize. And then I can keep coming back to that same story, that same movie whenever I want. Versus I see the word 300 times and I finally know what that is.
Right. Interesting. I've got this ability to remember details about people, and the story of how we met, little, nuances about their history and things like that. It creeps my wife out. I'll walk up to somebody and say, I think we were in third grade together. And she'll be like, you can't keep doing that. She's like, but you're right. You're really good at it. And I'll remember something, whether it's, I remember some phone numbers from when we were kids, and just different kind of mind, right?
Absolutely.
I never dealt with the dyslexia side of things. I was always the ADHD, fast, words coming out, not thoughts. It's happening right now, right? Thoughts faster than the way they can come out of my mouth. But I think this is kind of interesting. You basically, you went from somebody who didn't fit the actual traditional system, and then here you are, a guy who builds systems essentially, and has actually developed your own version of a learning system as well that you've shared in the book.
Yeah. I mean, once she taught me that it wasn't that my brain was broken or that I was broken, that I just thought differently, then I started experimenting. And I had this little notebook and I just started trying to do things. Hey, if I read a book, skim a book beforehand before reading it, do I have better comprehension? Yeah, that worked. If I read it 2-3 times, is that better? No, that doesn't work. If I read it fast the first time and slow the second time, does that work? Sure. If I read it slow the first time and fast the second time, does that work? No. All of these different trial and error. While I was in grade school, I just started tinkering around because I was all of a sudden fascinated by, okay, I can do this, but what way really works best for me? And that's what got me back to the book of Learning Your Way, is each of us are very unique individuals. You're different than me, so why should we expect that our brains are the same? They're not. But we all try to teach kids the same. And then we get angry when some kids don't fit that mold. So I was lucky enough to just keep going and keep tinkering around. And then I would find one technique that worked. And then I would find another one that worked. But for each one that I found that worked, hundreds failed, thousands failed. But I started building these models of things that worked for me. And by the time that I was in 5th grade, they took me from a spot where people looked at me as a deficiency to all of a sudden, like, this is my strength. This was my core. You and I joked when I was in grade school, I got made fun of because, I was told I was stupid. Hey, you're in special education classes. You can't even be in it. And by the time we were in 6th grade, all of our schools consolidated and I was getting a 4.0. And then I started getting teased because I was too smart. It's like, good Lord. Like I can't win either way. Which
that's the joy of growing up right there.
Yes, right? It doesn't matter where you're at one way or the other. Somebody's going to find a way to pick on you. But, I had built these systems while going through the process. So I'm not a clinician. I'm not, a therapist. I'm not that type of expert, but I'm somebody that went through it and built this system while I was in it. And it became very successful for me, not only, in high school, but also in college, in grad school, and post grad school, in my career. All of that built up from that very beginning of just looking at it from a different viewpoint, a different paradigm. And that shift happened to me early, and I was lucky enough to have a great mentor.
Where along the way did you get, when did you meet your wife?
Met my wife in 2007.
Okay.
And back in those days, we actually met on Match.com. Back in those days, it was viewed as kind of faux pas. Okay. Now, I don't know if anybody meets anybody outside of online, which is ironic for me.
Great. And how did the way that you go about things, whether it's learning or even in your courtship of her, was there anything that you did different than the average person? Maybe something we could all make fun of even, I don't know.
Oh boy. I'm sure she has quite a few things. I hate clutter. I'm not a clutter guy. When I see a lot of clutter, all of a sudden I start picking things up. But the thing that I loved about her that was an instant connection for me is she was an Army brat. Dad was a major in the Army. And she went from school to school to school. I think she was in 4 different schools in 1 year. And when she was younger, she was forced to either be alone or make new friends. And she has this uncanny ability to go anywhere and be best friends with everybody.
Wow.
And for me, when we went out on our first date, we went out, I asked her if she wanted to go out for beers or for root beer. And she was like, no, but I'll have a I will have a real beer. And I was like, okay, great. And I actually had double booked that night. A friend of mine had a going away party and things were going so well. I said, hey, why don't you come, with us and hang out? And within an hour of being there, she was best friends with all of my friends and knew stories of my friends that I didn't even know. I was like, who is this woman? Like, this is amazing. And so for me, it was a perfect alignment because being in special education classes, I was with those individuals and looked at as those individuals and had a lot of empathy for individual people all over in every part of the community. And met somebody that's exactly like that. Doesn't matter where we go. Doesn't matter anybody's background. It doesn't matter, wealthy, not wealthy. We both just can connect with everybody. And that's fun for me.
You use the word empathy, but I think also in there is the word dignity, right? Is that you would treat others with dignity, right? You didn't care what their learning disability was or what they looked like or whatever. You're just in the boat with them and
figuring it out together.
Treat me as equal.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So you guys have gone on to have kids.
Yes.
You've been through a few different places in your career. I will talk about the kids here for a second. So your daughter is in the civil aviation program?
Yeah. So I've got 3 kids, all dramatically different from one another. Girl, boy, girl. 14. My son just turned 13, and 10. And I hope they're not listening to this right now. And maybe someday they will. It's
not live. We'll edit anything that you don't want them to know.
My oldest daughter is very structured. Everything in its place, and very competitive. Great athlete. Whatever she tries to do, she is just amazing at. And my son is just like me and is tough. He's got ADHD. He's bouncing off the wall. He does a lot of things really great, and he does a lot of things where he struggles. And, of course, we have that relationship where half the time he doesn't listen to me. I try to tell him, hey, I went through something like this. Why don't you try something like this? He won't listen to me.
He'd prefer to learn from bruises.
He would, or from somebody else. It's just not me.
Okay.
And then my youngest daughter, she's just my sweetheart. She loves to sing, but they're all in sports. And, my oldest is in volleyball and softball and, ski club. My son is in strength training, wrestling, golf, lacrosse. My youngest daughter's in volleyball and soccer. And then my daughter, I'm big into vision boards. Love vision boards. I've got mine on my phone that I put together more than 20 years ago, and I've changed it here and there. And my oldest daughter, put together a vision board, and I always thought she wanted to be a veterinarian. And I looked at her vision board, and there's nothing on there, and there's planes that are all over the place. And I asked her, well, what are these planes for? And she says, well, I want to be a pilot. I said, you want to be a pilot? She says, yes. Since when? I thought you wanted to be a veterinarian. And we had some animals that pass. And she said, well, with the passing of, ours, it was just too hard for me, Dad. And I don't want to go through this every day. And I really have a passion for flying. I said, okay, great. And then back in my mind, I thought, oh, this is going to be expensive. And so I started looking around at different options, whether it was private or non. And I found the Civil Air Patrol. And if you don't know what the Civil Air Patrol is, it's an auxiliary of the Air Force. And there's a junior group and a senior group. And the junior group focuses on aeronautical education, safety and rescue. And they have all these programs where you can get up and you can fly planes. And you can be a part of this entire recruitment, I guess, effort. It follows all the guidelines of the U.S. Air Force. So they have the different rankings, and you go through, different training to get to each rank and so forth. And they have it both for the juniors and for the seniors. But moreover, once you go through these things like encampment, where they bring everybody together, almost like a boot camp, other opportunities open up. So you can get scholarships for flight. You can do all sorts of things. There's a lot of leadership that's involved with it, a lot of character building, which is fantastic. But at the end of the day, I saw this, we both joined, and it's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. She's been going through the rigors of the program. I've been doing training as well. She's already got her, I think it's a second lieutenant. I bash that up because I'm new to it. But one of the things that I really appreciated is we went to a Christmas outing, and one of the gals that we sat next to was so polished and spoke well, was very articulate, very intelligent. And as we talked with her, and her mom and dad were there, we learned that she had gone through this program. She had got a full ride scholarship to Embry-Riddle, and the week before had just flown in a MiG jet. And so her parents are like showing pictures of us to us with her kid, who's 20 years old, that had all these opportunities. And so it really opened up my daughter's eyes too, to say, okay, if you put in the work, it's worth it in the end.
Sure. And I think we talked about she's going to have her pilot's license before she has her driver's license. Is that true, or was I wrong about that? She
has the ability to fly non-engine airplanes before she turns 16. So she can build her flight hours now. And so once she actually gets her engine license, she'll not only have her regular engine or her flight hours for that, but they can do gliders. And so she'll get those flight hours that are associated with the glider as well.
Oh, great. How long does a glider flight last?
I have no idea. I haven't done one.
Yeah.
But I will.
Okay. Well, then you can report back. Let's go through your career. Kind of started on the consulting side, from what I can recall. But you've really shaped this. What stands out to me is this kind of business first approach that you've taken there. So you've kind of built your own system, way that you look at a business when you come into it. So walk us through your career, and then we'll build up to what that system looks like today.
Yeah. So I graduated from Western Michigan, 1998, and I was lucky enough to go right into Arthur Andersen. And for those that don't know, Arthur Andersen is no longer existed, but they were a top consulting firm when I had graduated. And they actually had their own college university. And for all of the new hires, you go to the college university for 8 weeks of training. And if you don't pass that 8 weeks of training, then you don't get the job. And the partners set it up that way, and they let you know. And essentially you go into this atmosphere with all of these other, individuals that are your age from all of these other different colleges and universities. And so, I'm standing beside individuals from Stanford, from Harvard, from, all these top Ivy League schools. And there's a little bit of imposter syndrome for me at that point. Sure. When I'm looking around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, who am I to be in here from a small, college university in Michigan versus, these other individuals. And, they quickly put you into a mock situation where you're doing a software implementation, you're gathering requirements, you're doing interviews, you're starting at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're not done until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And that's on a good day. If you want to beat your other, individuals that are in the other project teams, you're working till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, teaching you stamina, work ethic. This is how it's done. You don't sit there and whine. You just, get it done. The common sentiment that was work hard and play hard. There were times in there where, hey, you have fun, and everybody goes out and then has a brawling great time. But then when it's time to work, it's down. And that to me was perfect, a perfect beginning from, hey, I'm in college, enjoying it, I'm having fun, to, okay, now it's time to get to work.
I've been hearing a lot lately about the knock. When an employee knocks on your office door and says, got a minute? And you immediately know it's some sort of IT incident. But Oxium IT can help. Whether you're having a problem, need consulting, an upgrade, or a managed IT approach, they focus on preventing cyber attacks and proactive solutions that deliver results. My friend Matt Loria and everyone at Oxium are ready to help before or after you get the knock. Visit Oxium.com and let Oxium IT help you outsmart chaos.
I had great mentors right out of the gate, which was extremely helpful for me. People that not only helped me with understanding the software and the systems that were around, but understood just life choices, how to invest wisely at a young age, how to, be respectful of people regardless of, whether I'm talking to somebody on the manufacturing floor to gather requirements or to do some training, or whether I'm talking to the CEO. For me, it was natural because that's just kind of how I was built, given my circumstances. Mm-hmm. But it really lended itself well. And so I lived in Atlanta for a year, Denver, Colorado for a year, Los Angeles for a year, St. Louis for a year. I was in Emporium, Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere. And so I was able to go around to many different areas and also see just communities outside of Michigan and how, we all have our ways of doing things and others do too. And so it really opened my eyes. I loved the work. I loved the grind. I had a passion for it. And it started me off always on the business side, because I was always learning the business in order to figure out how the software, because back then I was doing ERP implementations. Mm-hmm. So I started with Bond and QAD, and eventually I landed with JD Edwards. And I was on one project one day, and we had a conversion that needed to take place. We only had 48 hours to do it. And the breadth of stuff that we needed to move forward, we didn't have the manpower to do it. And so my partner came to me and he says, hey, Todd, he's like, can you build a program with code to do this conversion? I said, I don't know. I've never done it before, but sure I could probably figure it out. I didn't mess with some websites like back in college. I know my HTML. And we chuckled, and he's like, I got nobody else that can do this or even wants to try. I said, well, I'll try. And I did it, and I was successful at it. And my partner was like, okay, well, we're going to put you on another technical project. We're going to put you with some developers and have you start developing some code. And so I started developing code, and it was just easy for me. I don't know why, but it was just easy for me. And so then I did that, and then started managing developers and so forth while I was there. Now, Arthur Andersen ended up, because of Enron, went under. Our JD Edwards practice was very profitable, so we got purchased by PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting. And their consultants were very similar to ours as far as intellect, work ethic, et cetera. And then we got purchased by IBM. When we got purchased by IBM at that time, now I'm not saying anything about IBM now, but at that time, the cultures were very different. They were much more relaxed. Hey, we'll get stuff done when we get stuff done. We were on projects, and it would be a Wednesday, at 3:00 in the afternoon, and the IBMers are like, okay, it's time to go home. And we're like, it's a Wednesday. Like, we might not go home at all. Maybe you're lucky on a Saturday. So we were just built differently. But at that point in time, I was looking to build a family. I was looking to get, a longer term relationship. And it was really difficult when you're traveling all that time. And I had just purchased a house in Novi, Michigan. And we had bid on some work with Masco, which is about 15 minutes from my house. And we lost the work. Oh, I was devastated. I was like, just wanted to come home.
You could taste it.
It was so close. I was so close. And so I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. I had put my resume together, and I gave it to the VP of IT at Masco. And I said, look, you're going to need somebody with my skills. And I just want to come home. You do not have to pay me a consultant dollar. I don't make a consultant dollar. I do not make $250 an hour. Okay, you can pay me a lot less and keep me for 2 years, get rid of me. I don't care. Just, bring me on the project. And about 2 months later, Mark, the VP at the time, gave me a call, and he's like, you are expensive. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm really not. And he brought me on board, which was fabulous. So we were able... I instantly started running projects there. We got JD Edwards up and running, and I really enjoyed it. It got me back home. That was when I was able to meet my wife, and I got put into their executive program. And so I became the director of applications at one business unit, moved over to a different business unit where I was the director of infrastructure. And then I was set up to be the CIO at the next opening that came up. And I was lucky enough to start networking at that time, not as well as I should have. But I met a guy by the name of Mike Pellegrino, and he pulled me in and said, look, Todd, he says, I'm not going to be here for much more than a couple of years. I'm close to retirement. I need somebody to come in here and be my successor. And, are you open to coming over there? And that was Mastronardi. And when I joined them, we were roughly 500 million in sales, rapidly growing organization. And then he ended up leaving. I took over. And by the time I left, we were about 2.2 billion. Loved the organization. But again, they produce, the largest greenhouse grower in North America. Tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, strawberries. Largest greenhouse is in Coldwater, Michigan. It's literally a mile by a mile long.
Really?
Huge. But if you think about, a tomato, if they sell it within the first couple of days, they can make a premium on it. If they wait, day 2 or 3, it's in transit, it gets stuck in the warehouse. They still sell it, still great. They'll sell it to, their tier ones, their Kroger's, their Meijer's, and so forth. If they end up going to day 4 or 5, they end up selling to mom or pop shops. They call them pikers. It gets day 6 or 7, they have to pay to dispose of it. So the life cycle is extremely short. You're talking about 2 days from making a good profit to losing your shirt. So from an IT perspective, systems had to be up 24/7, 365. They could never, ever be down. So whenever there was a blip, there's an all hands on deck. Everybody gets together and fixes whatever the issue is, whatever time it is. And so from a work-life balance, not the easiest. By then I had my 3 kids but I really loved it. Like, I do great in chaotic situations. I can look at everything that's going on and pick out the pieces that need to really be honed in on and zero in on them and get things, to closure, I think much faster than a lot of others. Mm-hmm. Back to, my strength, which is ADHD. And I enjoyed it. It was fun. But from a work-life balance, not the best. And then I get a call from a recruiter, just like others, and was introduced to National Food Group. They said, "Hey, we got a CIO opening," and I said, "I'm not interested." Well, it's in Novi. Oh, I don't have to move.
No, I'm interested.
Now we can have a conversation. And met Sean and the team. Absolutely fabulous. Again, another rapidly growing organization. Double-digit growth for the last 13 years, and I get to do it again. My personal passion is really growing companies. So it's been my trajectory. It's been a fun ride.
That's great.
It's been a fun ride.
So let's talk about this this whole thing. You had mentioned to me when we were talking a couple weeks ago, what a true CIO sees, and you said to me, they see the business model, they see the risk, they see the process, they see the people, the priorities, and then investment decisions. And then you told me that you have kind of a way that you walk through thinking about that when you come in net new to an organization.
Yeah. When I come into an organization, I look at the entire organization holistically, and I always start with the business first. So I sit down with the business, and I've got a structure that's in place that I zero in on. So I look at, hey, how are we from a cybersecurity perspective? How are we from a infrastructure perspective? What applications do we have? What applications do we not have? What documentation do we have? Now with all the AI is another bucket within that sphere of influence. And I start having conversations to really understand and learn the business, because that's just the way that I was built from my career on the bottom up. Asking a lot of questions around, how does the company make money? How does the company lose money? What is our competitive advantage? What is our strengths? That whole SWOT analysis.
So let's talk about that as National Food Group.
Yes.
So what do they do? How do they make money? How do they lose money? Yeah. Let's use this as the case study here.
Yeah. So, National Food Group, we primarily buy and sell dry and frozen goods to K through 12 schools and correctional facilities. We do sell to another segment that we call emerging markets, which are casinos, larger colleges and universities, larger entertainment facilities like Disneyland, Disney World. But the bulk of what we do is really K-12 and the correctional facilities. On the K-12 side, we have a brand called ZZ's, and we sell applesauce, fruit cups, trail mixes, bars. We're coming out with meat sticks. And the challenge in the K-12 space is it has to meet all the nutritional requirements, has to be at the right price point, but still tastes good for kids. That's a tough mix.
It's a Venn diagram that's hard to come together.
It's a tough mix to get together. And we're not in the retail space, and for good reason, because if you take one of our bars and you put it next to a Snickers bar, the kid's not going to pick one of our bars because a Snicker bar has 5 times the amount of sugar and it's just going to have a better taste. Mm-hmm. Where ours has a great taste, but it's not going to, match with your Snickers bar, but it's much more healthier, right? And so we compete in that space of really getting healthy foods to the kids at the right price point. And our brand is strong. And, we do a lot of community efforts. We have a Grab the Tab contest that's going on right now where we've got $150,000 that we're giving to schools that, are in need because of all the school nutritional programs and the pullback and all the funds and so forth. A lot of kids are going to school and they can't pay for it. And so the schools end up flipping the tab, but then they don't have the money to pay for it. So, just from a core value, we're helping out kids at its lowest. And then on the correction side of the business, we really have two spheres of influence. We have our always available. So we have things like a chicken patty, a hamburger patty, and so forth that are out there. And then we deal with a lot of opportunity buys. So we will work with and partner with like a McDonald's who is experimenting with chicken patties. They have a new batch that comes out, and this batch takes 5 minutes to cook rather than 3 minutes. It didn't work good in testing, so they've got 75 truckload of chicken patties that they want to get rid of. So we will turn around, we will purchase that. We will then work with, our correctional facilities and we'll distribute those and make a profit off of it. So there's a lot of nuances on the correction side of the business, but we've been able to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the entire plate, and so forth. Inmates need to be fed. Now the quality is a lot different, and the specifications are a lot different in correctional facilities than they are in schools. But at the end of the day, we are about feeding people. Mm-hmm. And I think we do a great job at it. We don't manufacture anything. We work with manufacturers that are out there. So from an IT perspective, that's amazing because I don't have this, window of, if something breaks, I've got to fix it in, the next 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Also, I've architected, National Food Group to be entirely in the cloud. So earlier last week, we had a water main break and we just told people, you can go home. You don't have to come into work. You can work from home. Now we're a little more flexible on our work from home anyway. So we're in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Monday, Friday are work from home. But if anything goes wrong at our location, we're 100% in the cloud. Everybody can work.
What do you say to business owners, leaders that are still doubters of the cloud?
They're behind about 10 years. That would be, my initial conversation with them is, I've been through the old process. I've been in the server rooms where you have a fan go down and you have to open the doors up and make sure that things don't overheat. And you're on a budget where you don't have the money to go ahead and pay for the extra fans or the extra cooling. And it's cost trade-off back and forth. And there's just the sheer headaches. Businesses have been able to do it better for a long time. And now there's still individuals that are out there trying to do it all themselves and pay for it all themselves. And I just find that it's not only cost effective, but there's an additional layer of protection that's in place. If I look at one of my systems, so my ERP system is NetSuite, and our NetSuite instance is in the cloud. If I had it, absolutely don't.
Mm-hmm. So are your people more, are your IT people more business analyst side of things, or what does your IT department look like?
I have a mix. So I have the traditional separation between applications and infrastructure. But then on the infrastructure side, what I've utilized is a third-party provider to help me with what I call tier 1 support, which is initial help call support, and tier 3 support. Just like you had mentioned, hey, some of the network switches is some real specialized expertise that I don't have the budget to pay for a full head or a full department to have that skill set to do those things. And so I utilize, a third-party provider that helps me, with those two areas. In addition to that, I have on-site support from a help desk for walk-ups that are needed, right at the instance, as well as the management groups above them will also sit, in our space in our area.
We see so much. So as you know, that's what we do here. Or one of the pillars of our operation is managed services. And the biggest growing area has been what we call co-managed.
Yes.
It's working alongside existing IT departments like yours with leaders who say, I'm going to be more focused on the business. I want you to be more focused on keeping the lights on. And so, yeah, we believe in the model, and we see it just continues to grow. And I think with AI, it's going to continue to grow even more, because you're going to want more of that in-house knowledge of how do we get more efficient with our workflows, right? You're going to need people that understand the business itself more than they understand the technology behind it, right? And so that's what gives way to organizations like ours to really, provide that value. I say some of it's the unsexy side of IT.
It absolutely is. But back to your point, because I've taken this approach, because you provide this approach, I don't need 10 of these different specializations. I just pay one low cost to my third-party provider, and I don't use it all the time.
Right.
But when you need it,
it's there.
You really need it.
Yeah.
And you need it fast. So there's a huge amount of value. And that to me gets back to the whole cloud conversation is, are there people that are out there that can do it better than you at a lower cost? And if there are, if you're not sacrificing the core of the business, if that's not the way that I make money or the company makes money, then it's imperative on me to actually do that.
Sure. Like I'm not allowed to outsource network management. No. That's what we do, right? I'm not allowed to outsource the support desk. But believe it or not, there's people in our industry who are attempting to do that.
There absolutely is. And, every business is different, but you have to look at, again, how does the business operate? And for me, keeping SG&A costs as low as possible is good for the business. It's not just good for IT, it's good for the business. And, I don't have, when I actually come to my CEO with a resource of, hey, I need another head, I'm not even having a lot of those conversations anymore. It's more of the conversations of, we're going to continue to scale, but I'm going to scale with technology. I'm going to scale with AI. I'm going to scale with agents that are out there, and I'm going to have people that are going to be managing those agents rather than having people do those tasks.
Sure.
So that landscape is also changing dramatically. But again, it's looking at the value. What's the value to the business on whatever role that's in the entire organization? It's just not IT. It's the value of the role in the organization. And if it's something that can be automated, the entire task, then automate it.
Sure.
A lot of people don't like to hear that because they think, oh my gosh, my job's going away. I'll be honest, it may. 3 years ago when we started talking around AI, I was one of the first to the forefront to say, this is really going to change the way that things are played. And I had a lot of other CIOs that were in the boat that said, I'm just going to wait and see how this kind of shakes out.
They'll say, oh, it's automation. We've seen this before.
It's RPA. Don't worry about it. And then, 2 years ago, it was, hey, AI is not going to take your job. It's going to be the individuals that are using AI who are going to take your job.
Mm-hmm.
And now the CIO conferences and groups that I'm talking to are talking which jobs are going to be eliminated with the use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that people aren't still going to make the end decisions, because they are. In the same respect, there are roles and responsibilities in the organization that are hand-keyed individuals, people that are keys on handboard, and those are going away. And they should. They will.
It's just how the world turns, right?
It is. And, you can either choose to get on the boat or be left behind.
Well, I mean, I think it's just, human innovation. I mean, it's just ever evolving, and progress is kind of almost unstoppable.
It is. Pandora's out of the box. Nobody's putting AI back in the box and saying, hey, we're going to go back and do the things that we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, companies and a lot of individuals, instead of looking at a linear, hey, I've got this particular process over here that is cumbersome and it's not doing well. Even I would say a year and a half, 2 years ago, they would look at that process and say, I can take AI and I can tweak that and I can automate that piece. And here's another subset over here.
Mm-hmm.
So all these little independent pieces. Now what you're seeing organizations do, good AI, good CIOs, they're looking at the entire business,
mm-hmm.
saying what subsections can I completely take out or orchestrate across multiple agents. In my opinion, some of your best managers that are out there, in the future are not just going to be managing people, they're going to be managing AI agents. They're going to be having conversations with AI agents of, this is the information I need you to execute. And they're going to have another AI agent that says, hey, I need you to help with the planning. I'm going to then look at it as a human to validate that the plan is correct. And then I'm just going to have an agent go ahead and execute it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to validate that it's executed. But instead of looking at, siloed processes of how AI can help, the future, in my opinion, is going to be looking at the orchestration across all of them.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen and we've demoed, and we're on our path for a couple of different orchestration platforms that we're looking at, and they're just remarkable. I mean, I sat down with a guy who runs a technology AI group inside of a logistics organization, and the system that he put together in 3 weeks would blow your mind. 3 weeks time. I mean, these are things that would have taken teams of people years and years and years. And it's mind blowing. So anybody sitting on the sidelines is, it's time to get on.
And software companies need to be terrified.
Oh yeah.
They have to be terrified right now, because you can take, any application that's out there. And even in today's environment, I can take Claude, Chrome, and I can have it look over top of whatever software application that is, have it do the activities. Well, it can then learn the activities, and then it knows code and can build it. So, all these proprietary software applications that are out there, we're not that far. And I'm sure some companies are already doing this, of creating applications that will just, if I need an ERP system, tell me your requirements, I'll just build it for you in a half an hour, and I'll build it to your customizations rather than I'm using NetSuite, I'm using Oracle. Sure. Now, I'm not personally jumping off of an ERP anytime soon.
Right.
But
timeline, what do you think the timeline is before a NetSuite is really given a run for its money by a
3 years,
an AI company?
I give it 3 years. And it could be sooner, could be a little further, but I'm already seeing instances where individuals are doing this. And if individuals are doing this, then it's going to be monetized.
Sure.
The corporations are going to be right there.
So who do you think will emerge as, do you think we're just going to see a world of where Apple, Google, Anthropic, OpenAI, are they just going to eat everything up and Microsoft? Is that going to be the world, and we're all just a function of it?
I don't think so. I kind of view this as any other technology or any other innovation that's ever existed. There are going to be big players, and there's going to be a lot of them to begin with. It's going to whittle down, and then it's going to consolidate to some big players, and then there's going to be niches that end up being born out of those, and then it just continues to spider. I don't view this as hey, we're going to end up at one singular point.
Okay.
I think it's going to be like every other innovation that's ever existed. It's going to spawn off lots of other things that need to be done, and they're going to need to be people that do them. You know, you've got Musk that's out there saying the world's going to be nirvana here in another 2 or 3 years, and everybody can just sit on their butt and do nothing. I don't view it that way.
Where's the money come from in that model? That's what I'm curious.
I don't ever know where the money comes from for a lot of these.
Well, I mean, if I'm saying if you know, because that's what I worry about is the economic collapse. Is if you have millions of people all of a sudden unnecessary in the workforce, where do they go? How do they buy groceries? How do they buy?
They're going to innovate, and that's what happens in my opinion. Could I be wrong? I could be wrong, but.
So if you have a crystal ball, you don't see global decline or something?
I do not see the world ending. I do not see fire and brimstone. What I see is the people that are going to be let go are going to find a way to support themselves. And whether that way of supporting themselves is something more hands-on, maybe they become plumbers, maybe they become fitters, maybe they, do something else, with their hands, or they start dabbling into AI and start building and creating and innovating. I see the latter. There are individuals that I know in my sphere of influence that are project managers, that are analysts, that are using AI every day now. And, I see that expanding further to everybody. So I personally do not feel like we're going to have this giant dip. I feel like there's going to be a dip at some point, but that there will be a correction and people will figure it out like they always have. This isn't the first innovation that ever crossed humanity.
Right.
Now
it's just maybe the largest technical disruption in the history of the worworld, but, so it might be a little different. They said the same
thing about Y2K, and we all survived that. It's in my opinion, it's just another innovation, just like anything else.
Good. Well, I love your optimism. I share it. I've got a little bird over here, kind of chirping, saying, "Watch out just a little bit." Let's finish up on the book. Tell everybody the title. Tell us who it's for. And then give us a little bit of a sneak peek into some of the tips and tricks.
Yeah. So you can find it on Amazon. It's called Learning Your Way by Todd Loiselle. If you put that in the search criteria, you'll find it. The Explorer's method for students who think differently. And, I really spend the first 3 chapters giving a history like I did here of kind of my background. But for somebody, that's like us, that has ADHD or dyslexia, what I would say is, just go to chapter 4. Just go to chapter 4, pick it up, and just read that first chapter. Because what that chapter does is it takes you through a tutorial of just figuring out how you actually learn. Do you learn through visual identity? Do you listen for your learning? Are you kinetic? Do you have to touch things and so forth? It takes you through an exercise where you can identify what works best for you. And it may not just be one, it may be several. Once you go through that, it'll give you the epiphany of, hey, I do learn differently from everybody else, and it's okay that I do. And that's really what I want everybody in this, this boat of ours to understand, that dyslexia, ADHD, these are strengths. And that's what I really wrote the book about, is this is a strength. This is not a self-help book. This is not a, you want to get better, do this. This is learn how you actually learn. And here are some techniques to help you to do that. So I would say start off with chapter 4. If you've never, if you just pick up the book, and then you can say, okay, well, is this a value or not? If it's not a value, to throw the book away. If it is a value, then go to one of the other lessons that are there. One of the ones that I have.
Let me interrupt.
Oh, go ahead.
So the thing I love is at the beginning of the book it says choose your path,
Yes.
and it's got A through F, right? And basically gives you a quick tutorial of where you should get started. And so you basically chose path C when you just with what you just said, just to go to chapter 4. But no, regardless of if you're in crisis mode, if you have a test tomorrow, I can't focus, my brain won't cooperate. I want to understand myself first. I've lost all confidence. And then path F is give me everything. I love this because as a person with ADHD, I don't think I've ever just started at the beginning of a book, right? And so this book actually gives you permission at the beginning to not start at the beginning.
Yes.
Right. And I just love that about this.
Absolutely. And that was intentional. It was intentional because generally we don't like to read, and putting a book in front of somebody that doesn't like to read, you're not going to sell a lot of books. But it's not for me about selling books. It's about getting, the learnings out there. And so, I came up with this idea of, okay, I'm going to give everybody the tips and tricks, the things that helped me learn my way, but I need to teach them how to build their own process. Mm-hmm. And I need to do it in chunks. I need to do it in a way that's absorbable for that type of mind, or our type of mind, to be able to just look at a piece and say, okay, this whole book is overwhelming. I'm not even going to start. Okay, well, you don't have to. And that's where I started off, in the very beginning. You don't have to read this whole book to get value of it. You can read a paragraph, you can read a chapter, you could read chapter 4 and chapter 8. It doesn't matter. If you can just read something and start something and try it, you're going to get value out of it.
So you just lowered the barrier to entry so much by doing that, which really talks to your audience, which, by the way, is the audience the student, or is it the parent of the student, or is it a combination thereof?
I would say it's a combination, but I put it a little differently. It's for the student, but it's also for the people that want to help the students.
Okay.
And that could be anybody. It could be the community. It could be a teacher. It could be a parent. There are a lot of individuals that want to help other people with ADHD. And so I even have a section in the back for a parent's guide to help walk them through, hey, how did they get this book into somebody's hands and actually absorb some of the material? Mm-hmm. So I've purposely built that into the book. And, I went one step further. Even this weekend, I created a digital twin of the entire book and put that out there. It just went live probably about, an hour before we came here.
And when you say digital twin, where'd you put it?
It's using Claude.
Okay.
But it's connected to my website. So it looks just like a large language model. You go into it, you can talk to it, you can ask it about the book and get any questions that you want answered.
Fantastic.
So rather than even starting there, you can just ask your question to the large language model about the book and say, hey, what are the top 3 things that would help me right now? Hey, I'm in this particular situation. What would be the most useful tips that would help me?
Now, did you decide to just give that away, or is that a subscription?
That's free.
Wow.
100% free.
Okay.
I'm not looking to make money. I'm looking to help people. My goal is to help 1 million students. If I can help 1 million students, then, I personally love throwing goals out there and being accountable to them. And that's one of mine. And if I can do that, if I can put a tool in somebody's hand to help them, then I feel as though I'm making a difference.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm going to go back to one other thing in the book here. But you just kind of undid it right there for me with the AI piece. You actually did. So on the page after it says choose your path, you then have the core 5. If you do nothing else in this book, do these 5 things. They take less than a week to set up. and will change everything for you.
Yes.
And so, again, you're really speaking to the mind of, someone like you or me or my kids who have ADHD. And I have a son with dyslexia as well. And these are just so fantastic because, again, here's son, here's this book.
Yes.
That's overwhelm. He's already at overwhelm. Doesn't need that added to him. So I love this. But like I said, you gave it to us here, but then you gave it to us online.
Yeah. And after every single chapter, there's a one point that says, if you only learn one thing from this entire chapter, take this away. And I do that after every single one of the major chapters that are out there. Just boiling it down to one simple, if you just do this one reading exercise, if you just do this one thing, you're going to take your learnings to an entirely new level. And then I tried to gamify it a little. So you'll see that there are different badges that are in place. Mm-hmm. And as you complete each one of the chapters, you increase and so forth. And the intention there is that as individuals, as the book gets out there more, that I can create, some type of award or prize system that's after it. So, hey, you reach a certain level, you can log into the website and you can get these additional materials or so forth. I also have a passion for helping inner city kids, and I would love to get this book into inner city kids because I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is teaching kids how to learn how to learn. And I just, in my experience at the inner city level, the talent isn't where it needs to be. And if I could just teach them how to learn their own way, then I think I could make a really big difference. Because I don't think that the lessons that I teach and the way that I teach them for those individuals happens today.
No, I doubt it. Not at the scale and ability that you have through the technology as well.
Yes.
So, well, we do have an award that we give out every year. I think we've got it. I think we've got 2 people in the running for next year, and I think now we have a third with you. So we call it the Golden Rule Award, where it's people treating others better than they expected to be treated, and I think somebody giving away this knowledge is deserving of recognition. So I
don't want any recognition.
Doesn't matter. We're going to put the name in the hat.
I just want to help people. I just want to help people.
I love it. Well, this has been great. I love the work that you're doing. Thanks for sharing everything that you did. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? And before we bring this in for a landing?
The website is talonstone.com.
Talent Stone?
Talon, like a...
Talon, oh. Huh.
Yes. So I founded my own company called Talon Stone Holding. Okay. And the word Talon has an initial from each one of my children's name and me and my wife's name.
Oh,
and
great.
Then she was like, hey, Talon is like the cornerstone, of our family with those letters. And so then we picked Talon Stone as our holding company. So talonstone.com is where the book is at, as well as Amazon. That's where I will have the AI agent that's out there that you can ask any question that you want of the book and give it any situation that you're in, and it'll use the output of the book to answer your questions.
Fantastic stuff. All right. Well, thanks for everything. You're doing great work in technology, great work with people, and great work with students. So thank you very much.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
You're welcome. This episode of the BLTNT podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. And powered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network.